Awesome. Hey, everybody. Happy to see you joining us for our first session of the CAN-ARX live Q&A session. My name is Kristen Cote. I am a outgoing director of SEDS-Canada. I am the outgoing projects chair. And in this capacity, I oversee a bunch of the projects that we do. So let's get right into it because we don't want to waste any time. Let's see here. So yeah, this is the CAN-ARX Q&A session. We're going to learn about what CAN-ARX is, some of the application streams that we have, and things like that. And then obviously we'll have an opportunity to answer questions as well. Just a note that this is the first of 4 sessions. So you're in one right now, obviously. We have another one later this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, and then 2 more the first week of July. So if you are interested in this one and you couldn't make it, there are more opportunities to do so. Awesome. All right, let's get going. Who is SEDS-Canada? We'll give a little bit of an introduction for this. So our mission is to strengthen Canada's future space workforce by providing post-secondary students, university, college, cégep, that sort of thing, with unique projects, research programs, and professional development opportunities in all aspects of sort of space, so governmental, industrial, and the institutional space sectors. We're Canada's only student-run nonprofit working across the entire country to sort of inspire and empower students who would like to or are joining the space industry. We're a member-based organization with members from almost every province. So if you see some of the provinces and territories, if you have friends from these provinces or territories, spread the word. We would love to have them join us in any capacity. And we create a platform for students to advance Canadian space sector. So I like to say at least that we train Canada's future space workforce. So that's quite fun. Like I said before, and this will be true for each session, we'll do a brief presentation that's split up into 2 chunks. So it's an overview of the research expedition. We'll break for questions. We'll overview the different participation streams or the applicant streams and how to apply. And then we'll have more tips for questions. At any time, if you have questions, definitely toss them in the YouTube chat. We'll have someone looking at the chat that might be able to answer them right then and there, but if not, we'll sort of scroll up and find them and try to answer as many as we can during the question period. Awesome, so I'm gonna pass it over to Roxy Fournier, who will be talking about CAN-ARX. 1 second here. Hey, Roxy.
Hello.
I just have to bring up the presentation. Do you want to present or do you want me to? It's up to you.
I can present. Give me 1 second. Share screen. Okay, hopefully you can see this. All right. So,
sorry,
yeah.
1 second. Okay.
Is it coming through?
Not quite yet. There we go. All good.
All right. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Kristen, for introducing SEDS-Canada. So my name is Roxy. I am the project manager for this newest competition, the Canadian Arctic Research Expedition. We're really excited about this one. We've been working on it for a number of years now to bring it to life. This is it's really, it's a team effort here. We have a couple of partnerships, the main one being with Western University. They have the Institute of Earth and Space Exploration there. So they are partnering with us on this expedition and will provide extremely valuable resources, including subject matter experts, They've done a lot of work in the Arctic already and will provide some excellent researchers and scientists who can help us out. Space Generation Advisory Council and Astrius are both our community partners. So they will have been helping us promote the competition and bringing in some subject matter experts from various fields and from various places across the globe. So just a little bit of background on CAN-ARX. So it stands for Canadian Arctic Research Expedition. And for this one, it is similar to some of the other competitions that we've had in the past. So if you're familiar with some of our other projects like the Canadian Reduced Gravity Experiment Design Challenge or the Stratospheric Balloon Experiment, those ones, very heavily focused on engineering. But this one, we've opened it up a little bit where we're not only allowing students to propose some kind of instrument or something that they're building, but also just a research project. So this would be something that doesn't necessarily require you to fully design and build something, but to use currently available technologies or instruments and then test a hypothesis. So you have the option of doing both. And it has to be in one of 4 topics: planetary science, atmospheric science, resource utilization and food production, or remote healthcare. And for this first year that we're running this competition, we are planning to do this competition for many, many years, but for this first iteration of it, we will be selecting one team to be going to the Arctic, along with our advisors from Western, along with a couple of people from the SEDS-Canada team that will compose our expedition crew. So the objectives for this competition, some of these do resemble very much some of our other competitions like RGX and SPX that I explained earlier. But one is to be able to allow you to conduct research in a completely novel setting. So for most people, if you live in the provinces of Canada, you may not have ever had the chance to conduct research in Canada's Arctic. So this is really an opportunity for you to really guide that research from start to finish in this novel setting. The next one is to conduct meaningful science and publish the work. So as I mentioned, this one is opening it up a little bit more on the science side of things. So we really, really are going to be pushing hard for you to publish your work. And we have a fantastic network at SEDS-Canada that can help you through that whole process if you've never published anything before. And this is a fantastic thing to put on your resume. Now, just imagine if you are applying to grad school one day and you already have a publication from in a peer-reviewed journal during your undergrad work, for example. This could be huge for your application to get into grad school or anything in life, really. Publishing research like this is really highly valued and highly sought after in the workforce. Connecting with local community. So we have a very, very large engagement plan for this expedition. So that just means that we have several avenues for you as the winning team, but also the SEDS-Canada team. Separately, we'll be engaging with people in the North, whether it be students who are attending college or university in the North, whether it be community members, community leaders in the North, and even down to elementary school level. We have several different ways that we're going to be engaging with these groups. We also allow you to build connections with professionals in this relevant industry. So if this is a topic of research that really interests you and you think that you might want to pursue it in the future, it's going to allow you to really start building that professional network. And then lastly, this is common for all of our projects. It allows you to hone your communication and presentation skills. So throughout the whole process, you're going to have to be writing your rationales for what you want to do, how you're going to do it. This is really critical. If you do go to grad school, or even if you get a job somewhere and you're asked to communicate why you want to do something or to design a project of some kind, honing those communication skills are critical. And also, you're going to be presenting your work at various stages throughout the year if you're selected. So you'll have design reviews and meetings with subject matter experts. So you'll have to present to them and really convey how much progress you've made, where your problems are and how to sort of explain what concerns you have and where you want to ask for help and things like that. So overall, those are benefits for you. For Canada, this is also an opportunity to build and contribute to the Canadian Space Agency's vision and mandate to train HQP, highly qualified personnel, in careers that maybe are not exactly related to space, but are related to science, technology, engineering, and math even. It's all relevant work if you want to end up in a STEM career. So now to get into a little bit of the details for the expedition itself. So as you go through your proposal, you'll be asked to choose one of the 4 research sites that we've down selected from a list. And this is where you're choosing to do your research. So we've chosen 4 based on several different factors like accessibility to communities and accessibility to equipment and resources and things like that. So it's not the middle of nowhere. You can't suggest to go, to Alert Nunavut or something like that. It has to be one of these 4 sites. So we have color-coded here. The one that I'm circling right now is Kluane Lake Research Station, which is very close to Whitehorse. We have the Western Arctic Research Station in Inuvik. We have the Canadian High Arctic Research Station in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut. And lastly, the Polar Continental Shelf Program's Logistics Hub in Resolute Bay. So all of these have unique features of them that make them good analogs for space research. And we've included very brief descriptions of each one of these sites inside the student handbook, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But if you're interested in, what are the features that these sites have and how would it work with your project that you're envisioning, take a look at the handbook. And if there's anything in there that we haven't answered already, feel free to reach out to us and we can try to answer. In terms of the timeline, so you all know by now the proposals are due by July 18th, which is coming up fairly soon. And we will give about a 2-week window to select the winning team. Now, throughout that, we're hoping to get word from the Canadian Space Agency on a funding opportunity called the Flights and Fieldwork for the Advancement of Science and Technology. So that's the FAST. So this is the funding source that we are going to be using for the expedition. An expedition to the Arctic is, it's very involved. There's a lot of moving pieces, and obviously travel and accommodations can be quite expensive. So we are seeking this Canadian Space Agency funding to support this expedition. So it should be released this summer. And one thing that I didn't mention in the benefits to you for participating in this challenge is that you will also get an opportunity to contribute to this grant application. And in science, everything revolves around grant money. And so this is a really, really fantastic opportunity for you to start to learn how these grant processes happen, what goes into them, and how to write them. After that, once the team is selected, you will then start to work on your experiment. So this will go on throughout a 9-month period where you'll have various milestones throughout. Such as design reviews and meeting with the SEDS team just to make sure everything's on track. In January 2022 is when we expect to receive the response from the Canadian Space Agency on the funding. So this will be what we call our go, no-go time. So this is where if we do not obtain funding, this year's 2022 campaign is likely not going to happen. So this is a very important thing to remember, is that this is all sort of centered around a grant. And the assumption is that we will get the grant, but there is a chance, and we've mentioned this in the handbook, that even though you may be selected to go on this expedition, there's a chance that it might be delayed another year because of funding issues. So just putting that out there. If you have any questions whatsoever about that, please let us know. But you will be developing your experiment under the assumption that we get the funding. And then the fun part is the expedition itself. The window is late May, early June-ish kind of time frame for expedition, and it's going to be 2 weeks long. the day-to-day activities that we're going to be performing still have to be kind of figured out, but this is sort of an example of what the expedition might look like. We will be bringing 6 members of your team. Your team can be composed of more than 6 members, but just keep in mind that for the expedition itself, we will only be taking 6 members, along with the Western University PI and some SEDS folks. And so it'll involve an arrival day. You'll have orientation and safety training. This is really, really critical when working in the field. So even if you have a lot of experience already working in the field, this will be mandatory. We'll have a lot of time for you to prepare your experiment. So a lot of you may be bringing equipment with you, which then has to be assembled on site. So you have plenty of time to work on that. And then we have some field days planned. And interspersed within those field days, we're going to have some lectures from subject matter experts or experts living in the communities around where we'll be located for expedition. And we're also going to be doing some outreach. So as I mentioned earlier, we have this very extensive engagement plan, and that includes also some classroom visits. So we'll be visiting with some students in the local communities and doing some outreach there. More field days in the second week. And then a little bit of time for data analysis, or if you need it, you can have an additional field day. Finish off with some more outreach and another lecture, and then departure. So this is definitely contingent on your experiment. We will decide the final sort of outline of what each day will entail once we know what kind of experiment you're proposing and what your needs are, essentially. You will guide us. So that's it for the expedition activities. So I will stop here for a moment just to, if you have any questions about how the expedition is going to go, and then after that, we'll then hop into some of the different options that you have for applying. So I will stop here, and if there's any questions in the chat, maybe Kristen, if you've seen anything.
Yeah, we do have one in the chat. This is from YouTube. What will finalize the expedition dates? What works best for the chosen project or external factors?
Well, we've given ourselves a window of sort of late spring, early summer, just because we don't want to take anyone out in the middle of winter in the Arctic. Yes, we definitely want to do what's best for the science or for your experiment. So that will play a huge role in what the final dates will be. The other factor here is also with funding. Depending on exactly when the funding starts, even if you get a grant, sometimes you have to wait a period before it becomes active. So that will play a little bit of a factor, but for sure we will work with you to determine what dates you need. But we're limiting it in terms of time frame. Like, we can't go for a month. So we're really going to try to limit it to about 2 weeks. We may consider extending it a little bit if you really, really need it, but for sure it's not going to be like a 2-month long expedition or anything like that.
Awesome. All right, I think that's all we have for this segment. So why don't we just keep her going, and then we can see if there are more questions afterwards.
Yeah, and feel free, folks on YouTube, post your questions in the chat. Even if we're now switching gears to a slightly different topic, if you have questions related to the earlier sections, go ahead and post them. Okay, so we have a couple of different avenues for applying to this competition. And so depending on what you're interested in and also what level you're at in terms of your education or where you are, you can participate in many, many different ways. So the main way that you can apply is as what we're calling the primary team. So this is those 6 students that are going to be coming with the Western U folks and the SEDS-Canada people. That will be the primary team. So these are students. You can be any student, whether you're international student or you're Canadian PR, you're a Canadian citizen, or whatever your status. If you're attending a Canadian post-secondary institution that includes cégep, college, university, you can apply to the primary team. So for this, please, the steps to apply, please review the handbook. This is extremely important. It has a ton of detail on eligibility requirements and all of these things. You'll have to form a team. This is important. We're not accepting individual applications at this time. So for this, you'll have to propose a full project, and that includes having a team and you are able to convince us that your team is going to be able to get the work done. So the team size can be anything, really. You can bring on as many people as you want. The one restriction that we have, other than, only 6 people are going to be able to actually come with us to the Arctic. You can also bring in graduate students, but we limit it to 1/3 of your team can be graduate students. The remainder has to be undergraduate or, in CEGEP or college or at that level. You must also find a faculty advisor, at least one. Some folks in the past have reached out to many different advisors, and the more advisors you have, honestly, the better, but we do require you to have at least one. So this is a teacher or a researcher, basically not a student, who's at your institution, who can help you and guide you along the way. Then once you have your team and your faculty advisor and you have an idea for an experiment, then you start to write your proposal. So in the handbook, there is a detailed rubric that has, we've modeled this actually off of the Canadian Space Agency's grant application process, where you have to answer several questions. So things like, what are the scientific objectives? How are you going to reach them? What is the relevance to going to the Arctic? Why do you need the Arctic to perform this experiment? So things like that, each and every single point in that rubric must be answered for us to review. And critically, your experiment has to fit within a few constraints. So these are things like volumetric constraints. Like, we can't allow you to obviously bring like a car-sized, huge, massive, very heavy experiment to the Arctic. We have to be mindful of how much mass we're bringing with us on the planes. So check out the constraints and make sure and double check that your experiment and your proposal meets those constraints, and also addresses all of the points in the rubric. And then once you have your proposal done, it's going to be sort of a written proposal in a Word document or word processing tool like that. Then you'll submit the PDF version of that to us at CAN-ARX at SEDS-Canada, at SEDS.ca by July 18th at 11:59 Eastern Daylight Time. This is important. If you're on the West Coast, that means it's going to be 8:59 p.m. Pacific time. So just keep that in mind. Another way that you can apply, if you don't have a team and you are a student aged between 17 and 25 who is living in the territories, so if you live in the Yukon or Northwest Territories or Nunavut, you can apply as an individual, and you will become what's known as the Delegate Team. So we will hopefully have multiple individuals from the North joining together as a team, but you apply as an individual and you'll form the team that way. And so what the delegate team does is you will become essentially part of the primary team. You will work remotely with the primary team on their experiment and developing it. And this can vary in terms of what you're going to do. So one example that I put here is you'll be in charge of a subsystem, for example, 3D CAD modeling and simulations. So something that you can do remotely. It can be basically as large or small of a task as you want. We're going to facilitate the communication at SEDS-Canada between the primary team and the delegate team, and try to work out, based on the delegate team's skill set, what would be the best fit in terms of where you can fit into the grand scheme of the project. So for this, application process is very simple. You just go to our website, which I'll put it on the screen in a minute here, but go to the website and then there will be a form for you to fill out. So there's no proposal writing or anything like that. You just have to submit a few documents and write, I believe, a few questions a few answers to a few of our questions and submit. So the last way that you can participate is if you're a researcher, so that includes a graduate student, or you already have some kind of research project that is funded. So this is a very critical element here. We are not going to provide funding for this. This must be something that is already funded and is related to health. So this could be anything from studying how people work together in a hostile environment or something like that. Something that really requires human participants, which will be the primary team, and requires some kind of remote environment or justification for why you need to do it in the Arctic. So this is very open-ended. We're looking for, proposals or ideas from various fields. If you think you might fit into this category, apply. If you don't think you might fit into this category, reach out to us and we'll help you figure it out. But yes, it's very open-ended. There are a few additional constraints to this one, primarily revolving around not interfering with the primary expedition objectives and length. So obviously your study can't take more than the expedition length. So it has to fit within whatever expedition time length that we have. Like if it's a 2-week expedition, your experiment can't take a month, for example. And yeah, there's a couple of other constraints as well. That's all in the handbook specifically for this this part of the for people applying to this part of the project. So here are the examples of, like, these are the cover pages of each one of these little handbooks. So the primary team one is the main handbook if you have an experiment idea and you want to write a full proposal with a team. The delegate team information package in the center here, and then the health study information package as well. So each one of these includes very specific information for applying to each one of these streams. And all of these can be found on our website, SEDS.ca/CAN-ARX. Now, in terms of application tips, I've said this already, but I'm going to reiterate it. You have to make sure you address each item in the rubric, and that applies to the primary team and the health study applications. For the delegate team, we really there's no rubric involved, so we just ask that you answer each question that's in the application form at the best of your ability. If you have any questions about those questions on the application form or anything like that, definitely reach out to us. And yeah, we can help you, and also reach out to mentors to review your application before you submit it, just to make sure you have as many eyes on it as possible, because you might have missed something, and it's a really good idea to get multiple people to review your application before you submit it. So yeah, everything you need is on seds.ca/CAN-ARX. You can just Google CAN-ARX as well. So for example, all the handbooks and booklets that I mentioned, the packages, that has all the details for each application stream. Templates. So this one's going to be important for if you're applying to the primary team. There's a couple of templates, like these are forms, basically like Excel sheets or things that you can fill out to help you fill out really critical information about your proposal, like budget and things like that. So make sure you use the templates that we've provided on the website. The application forms, so both the delegate team and the health study streams, they're both forms. So no emailing or anything like that. You just submit your application directly through the website. And also field site information and competition timeline is also in there. So things like what each field location has in terms of services, and what are the boundaries, where can I go to do my research within this site. That's all located on our website. So again, the deadline is July 18th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us, or we'll take some questions right now. We have about, well, we don't have too much time left, but maybe we can fit in a couple of questions.
Yes, we do have a couple of questions. Thank you so much for that presentation, Roxy. Let me grab them here. The first one is, do you have a ballpark budget for scientific equipment, et cetera? I'm assuming to share with those who are applying.
Yeah, so the FAST application is quite large. We'll have to figure out exactly how much that we're attributing to the instrumentation and equipment. So so maybe we'll figure that out internally and get back to you on that one, because I don't think we have a specific number yet. It's obviously based on the SEDS or the CSA funding, and minus the cost of the flights and all of that. So we'll get back to you on that one.
Awesome. And yeah, I think in terms of those who are applying, we really want to see them make an effort at trying to figure out a budget on their own as well. So there is a budget requirement for your project. Another one, would we be able to helicopter or boat to field sites, i.e. to a glacier in Kluane?
As long as it's within the boundaries that we've set. So if you go to the website, we've actually made very specific boundaries within each site of where you can go. So Kluane Lake's a great example of a place where some areas are a little bit hard to get to and can only be accessible by helicopter. So the short answer is it is possible. Just make sure that it's within the boundaries of the site that we've defined.
Absolutely. I have an example just up on the screen here for Kluane. So there is some glacial stuff in that boundary, and each boundary is sort of different for each site. So yeah, definitely check that out. Both the images exist, and then we also have an interactive Google map where you can actually like zoom in and see where these boundaries lie. Awesome. Another one, how is SEDS reaching out to post-secondary students in the territories to apply?
Yeah, we're in the process of doing that right now. We actually, over the years, we've built this fantastic list of contacts. So it's mostly university administrators that we're reaching out to. And if we don't get a response from them, and we hope that the administrators can then send the information to all of the students. But in cases where we can't do that, we reach out to professors and teachers. So we already have a list of basically all the institutions that we want to reach out to. So we'll be reaching out that way.
Awesome. And a final one here. Here we go. Does SEDS have any restrictions on taking samples other than weight size, or is it just research station permit specific?
Yeah, it depends on definitely research permits. With my limited experience working in the Arctic myself, but my understanding is if you can justify the sample collection, then it should be fine. It's just a question of like environmental factors essentially. So we'll definitely work with you on getting those research permits. So just make sure you have a very, very justified reason for collecting the samples.
Mm-hmm. I think SEDS, like us, we don't really have many more constraints on that front then as well, as long as you can obviously take it back either in the suitcases or the allotment that we give you to take there, or if paying for shipping is part of the budget, something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Okay, I think that is it. So I'm going to thank everybody for joining. And just remind everybody that there is a second session tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we'll have 2 more sessions July 5th. So if you missed this one, or even if you're on playback watching this right now, definitely you can join the live one on one of our next sessions. And if you have any trouble finding information about that, you can just go to seds.ca/ARXQA.
Yeah, and the information will be the same like for all of these sessions, just so we can, fit into as many people's schedules as possible. So we're not going to be covering anything new. We'll just be answering more questions from new people.
Yeah, exactly.